Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to Trek 10 First Contacts in honor of, as an appetizer for, First
Indeed.
Contact Day tomorrow, April
An
1st.
amuse-bouche, as it were.
Yeah, one of
Indeed.
those for our French
Indeed.
listeners,
Yes.
which I'm sure there are many.
I at least one. You know. What are those
So, as
canapes that
Valerian canapes, quite
Valerian
fattening,
canapes?
go straight to the hips, they do.
That's right.
If you
Oh
don't
well.
mind being a little hippie, dive into those Valerian canapes. I'm sure they're delicious. But as the name
Oh man,
implies,
there's plenty.
this may not be the top 10, but it will be the Trekkiest 10 list.
That's true. That's true.
That's what defines our choices here.
Yeah.
What we think are the Trekkiest choices. And who
That's
are
right.
we? Well, we are your hosts, Davin and Dave.
Indeed. A.k.a. Plain Simple Tailors and your Locutors of Trek.
We are.
So let's do it.
So, let's do it. Let's look cute about some Trek, but let's. All right, well, I guess that brings us to our number 10, doesn't it?
Boom.
And
a nice
our
number 10.
number 10 is, and I'll let you take this.
Okay. So we have, and I think you made a good point about this earlier in the day. We have a sort of a muddyish first contact here, which is the Organians. I mean, one of the things classically about first contact is they never quite go according to a strict plan, because each one is an encounter with a new, unique, strange, and unknown civilization.
Particularly
And
strange in this case, perhaps.
yeah, particularly strange. We're referring, of course, to the original series episode Errand of Mercy, where Kirk and Spock end up on this planet visiting the Organians, who are under increasingly severe Klingon occupation. And they go so far as to begin essentially a guerrilla campaign on the planet before the Organians.
Not using actual gorillas, mind you.
No actual weaponized gorillas. No.
No.
Now there would be an odd Section 31 move, eh? Get Coco.
Like,
Dave.
what's the Klingon animal equivalent of a gorilla? I mean, it would be terrifying.
That's true.
Like,
A Mugato?
Targ is the pig. Kind of, yeah, a gumato.
Oh yes. Oh my. So yes, the Organians end up showing who they really are. They're not simple agrarian settlers on this planet. They are in fact beings composed entirely of energy and thought.
Purple energy and thought.
Indeed, as we can see here, they're unable to be harmed ultimately by any of the real weapons or tools of violence that either the Federation or the Klingons could bring to bear. What they are harmed by is ultimately the pain and wretchedness of their violence. You know, like they're distressed by it, and it causes them pain in that respect. And so they put an end to it. But yeah, it's an odd first contact in that no one knew they were going to make it before the Organians decided to just say, no. Let's set the record straight here. Yeah.
Why did I suggest it was muddy?
Well, let me see if you said much more about it than that.
I did.
You just said also, is the Organian thing too muddy?
Yeah.
But I think in the sense that they're not going out to make contact. They're not even, they figure they know what they're dealing with, you know? And then all of a sudden, there's this different thing, and they've got to shift gears very quickly. So yeah, it's an odd first contact to start with. But a historically important one, you know, begins the possibility of peace between the Federation and the Klingons.
Ah, there we go. All right, very good. I like that one.
All right.
Number 10.
That's
All
one.
right. Well, this next one is somewhat similar in a way,
Okay.
I would say. But Nagilum. Number 9, Nagilum. So very much like the last one with the Organians, they weren't expecting to make this first contact, and they are making first contact with a being far more powerful than they are.
Mm.
But what I think is significant about this one is, I mean, it's a fairly early TNG episode, but like TNG really, especially in those early seasons, really felt like the sort of age of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And there almost seemed to be no bounds to it. But with Nagilum, it seemed to be the first time, other than like perhaps something else that may show up on this list, a being that one was far more powerful than they, and like unfathomably so. It's not like they just need to go design a better weapon. It's just like, no. But also, it's is now a part of space they dare not go, which is probably like, to me, like to tell like almost like, you know, third or fourth episode Picard that there's a place you cannot go and explore. He might not believe you, you know.
Yeah, it just, you know, it's like a "Here There Be Dragons" moment almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, unlike the
beacon.
Organians, Nagilum is very interested in suffering. You know, and has a sort of research-oriented program for the crew of the Enterprise, if allowed to continue it.
But unfortunately, no reference for suffering. So it's like,
yeah,
it's to his mind, it's not even right to call it suffering. He's like, 'cause he can't empathize with it at all. It's just like, it's no different from him saying hello to you, and he's just like,
yeah, exactly, yeah, and it's
like, what do you mean that hurts? What is hurts? Like,
yeah, ultimately they have to raise this to the level of their own annihilation, and taking it out of his control that ultimately makes the point to Nagilum that this isn't
boring.
Like, there's some independent agency from him here, not just something interesting. And then he has to grapple with that in a neat way.
Yeah, but to me, I just can't remember another time where they. Well, maybe there might be a couple other instances. Like, I think, like with the Tailors, perhaps, I think it is. But they put out a beacon to actually say, don't go to this part of space anymore, which they don't do a lot of that. So now,
no, there's very few
part
moments.
Of space, just no one goes there anymore, and who knows how large a piece of space that is. Like, I'd give them a pretty wide berth, so like probably a pretty big piece of space.
Yeah, honestly, he's. I mean, Nagilum seems to be able to alter the size and the character of that opening as well, right? So who knows what Nagilum's range is? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Nagilum shows up on Picard's screen at the end of the episode, if I recall, which is kind of terrifying, right? Maybe Nagilum never left and is just watching.
Well, surely his reach is farther, at least in communication, than we might have thought. Because who knows how far away they were by that point? Because it seems
right. I mean, they're at war.
He's back in his like ready room, like, kind of lounging by himself, and so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of. I could revisit that storyline. Nagilum's poking around out there.
Oh man.
Funny he never showed up in the Day of Blood. Wouldn't it be funny to have Kahless have gone after him?
Just absolutely beat the brakes off Nagilum. That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be something? Oh well, that was a great story. Go check it out.
I get it now. I get it now.
Over on the Treckle Trunk.
Indeed.
All right. Well.
Yeah. Go check out our Treckle Trunk take on that.
Yeah. Why don't you take us away for number 8? Which is the Horta.
Oh, the Horta. Space pizzas.
Space pizza boogers.
Yeah, yeah. They're sort of like Pizza the Hut from
Pizza the Hut. Yeah.
Spaceballs. Yeah. Yeah, Hortas are wonderful. I mean, they're a great piece of like really weird animatronics and foam. They're an awesome representation of a really alien physiology. And a true moment where first contact is earned in a way that makes it quite profound. You know, that moment of Spock putting his hand out to engage with the Horta is pretty wonderful. And I do love it that we see Horta show up in comic books and other places later, serving in Star Trek.
What?
Yeah, I know it's I forget where I saw it. Maybe it's a novelization. I forget where it was, but there's a Horta
interesting.
Serving in Star Trek. Yeah.
Well, see, that's perfect for the point I wanted to make about this and why I think it went good as a back-to-back with Nagilum. Is Nagilum showed them that there are entities out there that perhaps they can't relate to or develop a relationship with them, like strange entities. In the Horta's the opposite. It showed them that there are strange entities out there that, even though they're ridiculously strange in this case, they can relate to and communicate with and find common ground with, and even more with like them joining Starfleet. So it's like very, very, very Star Trek choice, the Horta.
Yeah, and I mean, and as you say it that way, it makes a poignant sort of contrast to the fate of the crystalline entity in TNG. Well, and Day of Blood, but particularly in that very sad TNG episode, you know, where there's another moment where they're really on the brink of establishing that communication again, you know.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Number 7, the Mintakans. All right, so the Picard. Was this a significant first contact for the Picard? Well, it seemed to be like a reminder to me. It's just like it was they were perhaps getting a little too cavalier with some of their science, even perhaps. You know, they're like even in Insurrection with their duck blinds and stuff. It's like, do you really need duck blinds on the planet? You can scan pretty good and you can see the ground from above. Like, you don't need these. That's pushing your luck. And there, I think maybe there was just a bit too much of that going on. Even though the Insurrection duck blind takes place after this, so I guess they didn't learn their lesson. But
but you're right. It does make the point that they're sort of elevating themselves above these Mintakans in some way that oddly ends up arguing for the Mintakans' view of them at first.
Yeah. So it's like, again, not an intentional first contact at all. In fact, a disastrous one, because it's the last thing they wanted to happen. But this is where first contact and the Prime Directive meet.
Yeah.
They would never want those things to meet. This is where they meet.
Well, and beautifully, right? Like the moment of what is sort of divine intervention in this story is precisely the moment where that narrative is subverted in favor of contact between mortal creatures of different domains. You know, and that is just a wonderful turn in the story. Yeah, that's awesome.
Mintakan seem like a fine people, but I don't know about that tall fella in the back there.
I'll bet you he goes right over chairs, just swings a leg.
Well, that's just preposterous. Who would do that? All right, that was number 7. So again, a good reminder about maybe not pushing the chances of making first contacts when you don't want them.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So moving on to number 2. The Borg.
The Borg. Resistance is futile. Your biological and technological Uniqueness will be added to our own. Oh,
Why
man.
is this a distinctive first contact, Dave?
It's honestly one of the most thrilling episodes in season 2. Let's put that right out there. It is a...
Is it Q Who?
I think that's Q Who, yeah. It's a remarkable episode in a couple of regards. I mean, not only that
the
we
neutral
see...
zone as well. Like in that episode, they sort of meet the Borg too.
I think so, yeah.
Or they see the remnants of their work anyway, or something. Anyway.
That's right. No, they're out. Yeah, they're out on a planet. They're out on a planet somewhere, I think, and they see that. That's a great diorama painting, actually, in the great tradition of Trek diorama paintings.
Which we'll talk about in our upcoming Locutors of Trek episode.
Oh yeah,
Talk in our season or our 5th episode of season 2, where we talk art of Star Trek with Jenny Johnson.
Indeed, that's coming up hopefully this next week, right?
18,
I think so.
like that,
or the week after, yeah.
Or
Anyway,
11,
soon.
something like that. No, 11th.
Anyway, so yeah, so the Borg, in terms of a first contact, are something forced. We've debated the merits of that move by Q on the show
Indeed.
before, and I think, in many ways it probably ultimately was to humanity's benefit. But the
question is, why did he do it?
I feel like he did it to take him down a peg again. To show them there really is stuff you're not ready for out there.
Yeah.
Or that's certainly his stated.
That's what he says. That's
what he says. That's true.
But what? I don't know.
What's your sense?
I don't know. Is he just messing with Jean-Luc? I don't know. I don't.
Well, there's always that ingredient in the stew. That's for sure.
I guess.
Yeah, I feel like Q has a secret soft spot for humans argument coming on here.
Yeah, well, it's like the only explanation we ever got. The closest thing we ever got is an explanation other than what he says in that episode is in season 2 of Picard, where he says even gods have favorites. That's the biggest motivation behind everything we ever saw him do. He loves Picard and he loves Janeway, so he likes to hang out with them and help them out a bit.
It's so arbitrary, but very cute.
Or was that move to introduce them to the Borg to help Picard specifically, and only really him?
That's
it
interesting.
Wasn't good move for most of the people at World Wolf 359.
Certainly not. Now, mind you, does it mean that humanity survives because it meets a Borg, 700 years before it might otherwise have met them or something, right? No, but that's impossible because the Borg were already stealing settlements on the edge of the neutral zone.
Yep, they were there.
Yeah, it's a very strange move on Q's part, but yeah, and it's interesting because they do attempt really standard first contact protocols right off the bat. Interesting point, Sam.
Well, yeah,
that move is why Q's not a
villain. Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily a villain either. Though he does make our villains list, I believe, over on our villains ranking. And we have a ranking convention coming up. Speaking of rank conventions, coming up tomorrow.
Indeed.
Where we're going to, the uniform forum, we're going to talk the apparel of Star Trek.
That's right. Accoutrements and couture.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So yeah, so the Borg are terrifying. I
mean, certainly the most unrelenting and perhaps terrifying enemy the Federation has. So the introduction to them in general is going to be pretty significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 5. Well, speaking of which, Q. Hi, Q. So, I mean, he had to be ahead of the Borg, I felt like, on this list because he introduced us to the Borg.
Yeah.
So, you don't have one without the other. He's the egg before the chicken or the chicken before the egg, depending on which way you swing in that argument. But,
well, and from his time shenanigans on, he definitely is that, right? I mean, he's a sort of circular cause for the entirety of TNG. And you know that sense in which he's just really interested in Jean-Luc Picard is uh I'm really caught by that now. Um, you know, the Q continuum again is one of these impossibilities to just mortal people or
Sam is suggesting we are
y'all
all
are
on
on drugs.
drugs.
And your
We're not
point
placing
is
Q higher. Yeah, what does that have to do with Q, this list, or really anything? Um,
oh my.
yeah,
Um,
that has nothing to do
yeah,
with
no,
anything.
Q's like an
Neither here nor
incommensurable being.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, just significant, mostly for
yeah,
Jean-Luc Picard, perhaps, and Janeway even. I mean, he helped get the crew of Voyager
it's
back
true.
quicker. And
He does make a great use of a mariachi band.
he does, doesn't he?
That's all I can say. Yeah. Wonderful. Uh,
And he really knows how to bring witnesses to a courtroom. Um, one of the best.
oh man,
Um,
what an absolute like phantasmagoria that first episode is. Though, like it is so
right.
crazy.
You could see how it was definitely supposed to be two
Yeah,
separate episodes. uh,
absolutely.
but you're not wrong. All right, let's move on to number 4. Cisco meets the prophets.
All
So,
right.
Dave, though I love to wax and wane about Cisco, this was your idea, this pick. So why don't you take it away?
Well, I think that this kind of continues again that theme of like incommensurable beings. Uh, and this is first contact of an order that's really kind of it pushes the boundaries of how that even happens. The wonderful quality of Emissary as a pilot two-parter, uh, or sort of 2 hour special with this question of time and what is time? How does it mean?
You're
Why
not
do
here.
why are we
You
interested in how the
exist
ball
here.
flies? Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man. It's just it's a really great addition to the way Star Trek thinks about relationships, but also about uh, motivation, right? Because it lays this double motivation into Cisco right from the start that is uh, so interesting by comparison to all of the other Star Trek we've seen. One of the other interesting double motivations we've run into recently is Christopher Pike's sort of foreknowledge of his demise, which, I mean, has in some ways a kind of analogous function, I think. Cisco knows that there's some other force which is just always going to be breaking into his world, and that as much as he wants to imagine it just as wormhole aliens, they are stubbornly going to make demands on him which far exceed that.
And the reason I like this placement too, and just above Q, and why whether or not you or I are on drugs has nothing to do with this, um, is because it's much like the last relationship, where is the Q relationship seems to be very focused on Picard and most significant for his life than perhaps the rest
Mm-hmm.
of the Federation. This one seems like that as well, but in the end, it's his relationship with the prophets that saves the entire Alpha and Beta quadrants. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it becomes very like this one. Maybe even could have been snuck up a little higher on the list, but there's some other good first contacts to come. But this
Yeah.
one turned out to save everybody's lives.
The prophets really do work in mysterious ways that way. It's pretty great.
They do, and
Yeah.
so does Cisco. That's what we've
That's
seen. That's
true.
why they work. Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
pretty good.
Picard.
All right, let's break into the Trek 3 here. Humans
Here we are.
meet the Klingons. Now, the reason I think this one is very significant, obviously, we all love the Klingons, the humans in Starfleet Federation Klingon relationship is always contentious, but often some allies as well, but very significant. Like it's the other big player kind of thing, other than the Romulans, but they're their own thing. But the reason I thought this one was very significant and interesting, there's Clang, not just because it happens in a cornfield.
Who I think, now that I look at him, I feel like he played the president in The Fifth Element as well.
He certainly did. That's Tiny Lister. R.I.P.
Oh, yeah. Two great roles.
Or he also was Zeus against Hulk Hogan back in the day.
Oh, man!
And
that's
Debo
awesome.
in Friday.
Nice.
Yeah. So it would be funny if he just came down onto the earth there, Clang, and just like, give me that chain. So the reason I thought this one was like particularly interesting is this is the only good way, and it's all by accident, but this is pretty much the only good and safest way to make first contact with the Klingons. 1, it's on your home territory. 2, there's only one of them. 3, it becomes critically injured, so you're doing a favor to this Klingon, and by doing that, showing the first time the Klingons as a wider populace become aware of you, you're doing them a favor. So it would be dishonorable to then immediately attack you. It's the only good way to make first contact with the Klingons without dying, for the most part.
Because otherwise it's just going to be a fleet of D7s coming at you, right?
And it took someone as well-meaning as Archer. Like, Archer gets underplayed sometimes, but it took someone as well-meaning as him to want to make all that happen. So it's just freakish chance, but it's the perfect way to meet the Klingons, I think.
Well, I do love how messy it is as a first contact. Like, that's very in the spirit of both Klingons and humans. Like, they're all kind of like,
and their relationship.
It's great.
So, pretty good. All right, number 2.
I also love how that one brings in the theme of the technological and biotech sophistication of the Klingons so early in Enterprise. Like, it really lays this different note down about who and what the Klingons are at that point, that we're going to see like a different side of it, which I really liked.
Oh yeah, they're all like, this guy has redundant everything. Like, they're like, well, that's great. The Doctor's like, no, it's not. That's just like so many things that can go wrong. You could be killed by a lung you're not even using. Like, like it's not efficient. It's good for battle, but it is not efficient at all.
Yeah.
We talk about messy and complicated Klingon biology.
That's true.
Number 2. Well. Why don't you tell us about this one and why this is one of the more interesting first contacts, if not the most interesting.
Oh, yeah. One of the great episodes, The Inner Light. Now, as you recall, this is an episode where Jean-Luc Picard spends about 20 minutes unconscious on the floor of the bridge and wakes up having spent an entire lifetime as a member of this species that sent out the probe. What would it have been, about 1,500, 2,000 years before, something like that? So they've been dead a long time.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
Like their sun burnt out, and I think that's what they were there studying, right? Like this remnant of the sun or something.
I think so, yeah. And so they run into this this probe out there. And it's this beautifully tragic, bittersweet first contact, because it's first and only contact. It communicates this lifetime to him, beams over a flute or something, and then wipes its memory, as I recall. It's essentially like done.
And it's both the quickest and longest first contact ever.
Yeah, completely peaceful, but also, it couldn't have found, in some ways, a better contactee either. A guy who's interested in archaeology and sociological formations, who's going to make really good use of the details of those lives to communicate that culture in what I assume is a series of articles Picard subsequently wrote about this. If he's or contributions to conferences or symposia. You know, yeah, it's just one of the most gorgeous episodes. It shows this beautiful family, this completely sort of quotidian, day-to-day life of these people, as they're waiting for their culture to die and their planet to end, and trying to live in that knowledge, but still live a good, full life. You know,
The most unique first contact, like, has to be like gifting someone a lifetime. But is it okay? This one's maybe muddy too. Is it first contact because that species doesn't get to meet the Federation? It's a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
Like, it's a one-way street. You know.
It's certainly a
it's
non-standard
way,
configuration for that, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's only a one-way street. It's only first contact outward in that sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
To think about.
It's as good as they're going to get.
It's a great pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like a little forget-me-not flower they find, you know.
Both either side is going to get, so that's something they have in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, here it is. The reason everyone will be celebrating tomorrow, and we give you this appetizer here tonight. The humans and the Vulcans. There it is. The epic image, perhaps the most epic image in all of Star Trek, maybe one of them. There it is. Maybe not the handshake, but you know, he steps off. And
he steps off and he's like, yeah.
And like, Zeph can't do it, so then we end up. I mean, he can when he's sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's just not very often.
Extra hands to be an engineer, but
yeah,
not at that moment.
But I mean, this is the defining moment of two universes, right?
Yes, they're both irrevocably changed by this.
Yeah,
like you'd think is just going to overwhelm the human society. Now they know there are sentient species out there and stuff, but you could argue this changes the Vulcans, if not as much, maybe even more than the humans going forward.
Oh yeah,
the Vulcans were not this species that would join this federation of all these just like so diverse species, right? Until the humans rubbed off on them for a while.
Yeah.
Like 70 years or whatever it was.
You know, and their diplomatic adventures show that over the course of Enterprise, right? That they're extraordinarily wise and they're powerful, but they're insular, and they're not really that interested in other people.
No. Which has its disadvantages. Like, they had a very limited space program because it was just more problematic for them than anything else.
Yeah. But I mean, this you know, and as much as humans have changed Vulcans have just the fundamental finding of others out there, you know, seems to give humanity in the Star Trek timelines this impetus and new sense of purpose that's beyond just planet Earth or beyond just sending a spaceship out here and there. It's this zest and this courage to get out there and meet the rest of the galaxy in some ways that is so beautiful in what comes to be Starfleet.
So you're saying some oogie boogie.
That's right.
Oogie boogie.
Some oogie boogie.
Oogie boogie. Space oogie boogie. But you know, it's our Mintalkin incident. It happens a bit differently because the humans were more evolved than the Mintalkins, at least in technologically.
Yeah,
so
technological
how evolved doing on the Third World War is, but Yeah, it's that. It's like it's the best illustration of First Contact that we see, the most epic
Yeah.
portrayal.
Well, again, and I think we've talked about this as well. It's the First Contact that, like, it's the prototypical archetypal Federation First Contact, and it's what they all want it to go like. They all want to be the Vulcans landing somewhere.
Yeah. And though we don't see it until after TOS, TNG, and we're all done, like two of the most watched series, it's still, when people think they see it's First Contact Day tomorrow, this image, or the buddy stepping off with his thing, is the image that's going to come to most people's heads. I think when they think First Contact, they're going to think this, even though it was just in a movie, it was a small scene in a movie, but a popular movie, mind you. But
Yeah, pretty darn good one.
and that movie was called First Contact, so that might
It
have
helps.
something to do with it.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's like it's the symbol of like that whole basis thing that Star Trek's about, like reason and passion, technology, and like just the spirit of discovery, like that, all those things coming together.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can find us on. We've done it. We've made it to the end. That's our Trek 10 First Contacts. Enjoy First Contact Day tomorrow, everybody. That's going to be fun, and we will have a radio theater for you tomorrow. Oh, yeah, that ranking convention's not tomorrow, is it? Or is it the radio theater?
Rankings tomorrow.
No. Rankings tomorrow, yeah. That's right, yeah. Ranking convention. The Uniform Forum. If you're going to make First Contact, which uniform do you want to wear? That's the kind of stuff we'll be talking about.
You want to dress your best.
Or do you?
That's right.
Well, tune in tomorrow. Find out all about all that.
I'm not even wearing pants. It's scant for me.
Question here from how do I say your name? Anyway, who would the Vulcans represent in our time? Someone who leads by numbers to get best results without empathy. Spock was half Vulcan, so he had empathy.
It's a good question. I would argue that Vulcans might rather be better represented by somebody like, say, Stephen Wolfram, the computer scientist and computational engineer who develops radical understandings of both how physics and consciousness are derived from extraordinarily simple beginnings emerging into magnificent complexity. I think a CFO is probably too close to our own cultural problems to be very Vulcan.
I agree. No arguments from me there. All right.
But great question nonetheless.
Yeah, good question. You can contact us at locutors@gmail.com. Find our audio-only version wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, if you want, check out the patreon.com/livelongandpodcast. Become an ensign. Become a lieutenant. Join the crew. Join our patron, Ensign Norman. Over there. And, check out all our shows over at ufpodcast.com. What do we got going on here in the Trek brand here? We got, obviously, the ranking convention tomorrow, which I don't have an image for here, unfortunately. I should have loaded that up.
Got our episode on art coming up soon.
We do, and I also didn't load that up. That image up. But
gonna leave you hanging in suspense.
That's the future. Those things haven't happened yet. Recently, we had an interview with writer Tom Selinsky. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a Trouble with Trivia with myself, Adam, and Mark Cartier from the Shuttlepod Show, with our host Ashley, of course. And it seems like there's going to be a blood revenge coming up in Debate 9, as that cast is looking to be perhaps myself, Adam, and Mark Cartier again.
Ooh.
So, I am out for blood revenge. And we, of course, recently did our supplemental. Miles O'Brien, the greatest man in Starfleet history, which you should all check out. And, of course, over in the Command Division, they're reviewing Discovery tonight. In 15 minutes, they'll be reviewing the first 2 episodes of the newest Discovery season, so go join them over there.
I hear
in
it's
our
got a
Ops
great new theme
division,
song.
as I said, we do have a radio theater coming up, and that image I might have actually loaded. Yep,
Ooh,
we're
look
doing
at that.
Conundrum, TNG. I'm going to be the narrator, and the rest of the cast is kind of gender swapped, except for a couple. We've got Jane Mater playing Jean-Luc Picard. Jane-Luc Picard, you might say. Ooh, I think I'm the first one to come
Nice.
up with that. That's pretty great. But you know what? Look at our fine crew. We have a fine
There we
crew over
are.
there at Live Long and Podcast. Look at us all standing there proud, bringing the Trek content to you all.
It's true.
And, yeah. Check all that out. Check out our
There we are.
Locutors of Trek and Science Division stuff. Check out X-Men, the animated review show. We're into X-Men 97 now. Graphic Histories this Monday. The next episode will be, Andre will be speaking with Gary K. Wolfe, the creator of Roger Rabbit, writer of Who Censored Roger Rabbit, that the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit was based on. So check out that interview. Check out Hold Up a Movie podcast. Our next one will be on bicycle movies. Very obscure.
Bicycle.
But I picked Pee-wee's Big Adventure, so tune into that. Super Mater Brothers are reviewing reality shows over there. They probably got one going. Probably Survivor. Maybe Big Brother.
Probably. Yeah. One of those things.
You know, you want to get some music into you, or some reviews of it at least, check out Aiming on Track. And, of course, we have Trivial Debates. And, the newest members of our federation. Hey, did you see this one? Whose logo I also don't have handy. Oh, and the Hellbound podcast there, too. Of course.
Right on.
That's us. That's our federation. And,
man,
I guess there's only one thing left to say.
Indeed. In transmission.
Mm-hmm.